And action.
But what pitch is it?
Pitch number 4.
Oh, yeah.
That's the important part.
Oat milk, kale, chia seeds, matcha, acai. For a while, nobody was talking about these ingredients. Then, in an instant, they were in everybody's fridge. Not because they were new, necessarily, but because they were trends fueled by really good marketing. Claire Smith wants to do the same thing with an ancient Ethiopian grain called teff. If you've never heard of it, you're not alone. But this founder aims to change that. Can this one-woman show convince investors that teff is the new quinoa? Or is it just too teffy to tango? I'm Josh Muccio. Welcome to The Pitch, where real entrepreneurs pitch real investors for real money.
I'm Neil Salas Griffin, Managing Director here at Techstar Chicago, and I'm happy to welcome you all to my city.
I'm Elizabeth Yin, and I'm a general partner at Hustle Fund.
I'm Charles Hudson, Managing Partner, Precursor Ventures.
I'm Phil Nadell. I'm the Managing Director of Forefront Venture Partners.
I'm Gillian Manis, Managing Partner of Structure Capital.
The pitch for Teffola is coming up after this. The information provided on this show is not intended to be investment advice and should not be relied upon as such. The investors on today's episode are providing their opinions based on their own assessment of the business presented. Those opinions should not be considered professional investment advice.
Oh, yeah.
There she is.
Not anymore, it's been-
Hi.
Good morning.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Hi.
Good morning. My name is Claire Smith, and I am the founder of Teffola. We're all supposed to eat healthier food, right? I mean, how many times have you told your kids or your spouse, try this, it's good for you? Well, you're not alone. The naturally healthy foods market reached $279 billion last year, and there's a new market emerging. Sustainable goods hit $150 billion, with a growth rate 2.5 times that of traditional goods. Consumer mindset and their spending is shifting from just good for me to good for me and good for the planet. But let's take a bit of a step back. I grew up as the 7th generation on a farm in Michigan where we've been practicing regenerative techniques focusing on soil health for decades. But in 2015, my dad started to see these wildly fluctuating prices for the commodity crops that we'd been growing. So he began to raise alternative gluten-free grains like teff and buckwheat. And so we're pivoting from corn and soy, which have been the backbone of our farm for a long time, to these different grains. Now, I was living in Western Canada when my mom and dad pitched me this idea to come back to the farm and start something, and I mean anything, with these grains. Eventually, we came up with Teffola, a boldly flavored granola celebrating these ancient grains grown on the farm. Now we're expanding into the snack category, projected to outperform granola revenue 2-to-1 by the end of next year. We've done the dirty and scrappy work to know that we're on to something big. And now we're raising $375,000 for the next stage of growth. Thank you.
Can we try it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So here are the bites. We have triple chocolate, almond butter, mocha.
Thank you.
And then
So
our
we're
original.
and so
Thank
do
you.
all of these have sugar in them?
So they're just sweetened with just dates. And then the granola itself has maple syrup in it.
Thank you so much.
And that's our only sweetener.
Can you tell a little bit more about the different properties of teff? I've never heard of it before.
So teff is originally from Ethiopia, so lots of protein, fiber, iron, and calcium. My favorite fun fact about teff is that Ethiopian women don't struggle with anemia during pregnancy because there's so much iron in it.
Julian's initial question raises a point, which is, I know most people haven't tried teff and aren't familiar with it. Are you concerned that most consumers not being familiar with teff will have a hard time getting comfortable buying a product called Teffola when there are lots of gluten-free granola alternatives available?
So what we found, I did more than 100 demos in the year of 2019, plus a lot of farmers markets. And so when I was educating people about what teff was and the product, they were very interested in the farm and the story and the grain. But as time went on, I realized they're not buying the granola because of the teff itself. They're buying it because of the flavor, texture, nutrition, and then the farm story and what we're doing. And then it's also a cool grain. But what was really clear to me and what I possibly wish I had done a little bit differently before naming it Teffola was I didn't want to build a company around one ingredient because, you see interest spike for that one ingredient and then it kind of peters away. Like if you think of goji berries or chia seeds, those insane spikes of interest, and now no one's using goji berries.
Right.
And so if I built my company around one ingredient, I wouldn't be comfortable with that. So we're building an ancient grains company, specifically gluten-free.
Does that mean you'll have products with other names other than Teffola?
Yep, we have the Teffola and Teffola Bites right now. These go into production in January. And then also next year, we're looking at our first savory product. It'll be like a salad topper. So chickpeas, pumpkin seeds, buckwheat, teff, in a spiced mixture. That will be launched under our parent company name, which is Tenera Grains Products. And just to be clear, the farm and my company are separate. We're kind of like a spin-off.
Can you talk about your unit economics?
So our blended margin is 27% between direct-to-consumer, which is online and Amazon, and then our wholesale and distributor channels. And then our COGS per bag are about $4.35.
What's your total current revenue and what percentage is from direct-to-consumer versus third-party retail?
Year to date, we're at $70,000 with $10,000 in accounts receivable. So 40% to distributor, 30% direct to stores, and then direct to consumer is right around 30%.
What stores are you in right now?
So we are in a couple of Fresh Time stores. We're in more specialty independent stores. Some of our larger accounts would be Better Health in southeastern Michigan, Bush's. Those have 15, 16 locations each. We do really well in the independent specialty grocery stores, which is why we brought on KeHE, who's a national distributor. So we're in 2 of their warehouses in the Midwest. And COVID taught me a lot of things, but 80% of my business was wholesale, and then that tanked. And so we just needed to kind of even out our channels and be a bit more deliberate about who we're partnering with.
At the consumer level, what have you learned about, why people are hiring Teffola as opposed to other products?
Flavor. We have a really complex flavor profile. It's not an oat-based granola. You're looking at almonds, walnuts, buckwheat. Yes, there are oats, teff. It's just, I don't like one note kind of products. Plus, there's more of this focus of the regenerative agriculture. I get to educate people about what that really means.
The investors are really getting into the nuts and seeds of this pitch, starting with regenerative agriculture, which, if you don't know, is sustainable farming focused on long-term soil health. This sustainability angle is crucial to Claire's pitch for Teffola. And to drive home the point, she brought 2 jars of soil into the pitch room.
One is dead potting soil. I'm calling it dead because it's been sitting on my patio for 3 years with nothing in it. And then the larger jar is dirt that I got from the farm, and there's worms in there. There's a whole microcosm of organisms that keep the soil healthy and replenish nutrients that the different grains need. So we are highlighting all of our ingredients we want to source with those regenerative practices because it's better for the planet.
Can you just talk a little bit about what products you see as your primary competition and how you're differentiating?
In the granola space, it would be Purely Elizabeth. So she has a clean ingredient label. Some of her products are gluten-free or grain-free. In the snack bites, our competitor would be Made Good, and they have a huge, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Made Good, but they have a bigger lineup. And I would say they have a good ingredient label, but I don't see brands really committing to this regenerative agriculture, which is different than organic.
Doesn't your ideal customer, in addition to regenerative farming practices, don't you think that they also want to see organic products?
I think customers are learning the difference between organic and regenerative. You can be an organic farmer and plant the same crops year after year after year, and that is stripping the soil. Just because you're organic doesn't mean you're focused on soil health. We would be organic if we could make sure that our entire supply chain was practicing regenerative techniques, and not all organic farmers can say that. So first and foremost to me is regenerative techniques, and all of our ingredients are non-GMO. But our ideal customer wants to see that we care about our product. And so since there isn't a regenerative ag certification, it's talking to consumers about that, educating them on the website, working with our packaging. That's how we would communicate that.
So is that your differentiation then, that focus on regenerative agriculture? So
How do you market that?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say your packaging doesn't
Has
really
nothing on it.
reflect
Yeah, it doesn't yell that.
a little bit on the back, but the front of the package doesn't really reflect that that's your focus when you're competing on the shelf against lots of different brands, and they're looking not so much at the back of the package, but the front. You should be shouting regenerative agriculture, ancient grains, and also look at the tiny gluten-free.
I know.
That should be much.
I mean, on the top, I would put ancient Ethiopian grain. And I'd be
so
like,
we have
ooh.
Michigan-grown teff right on the front. It's in the center of the bag.
I think it's too small. I very much think about marketing first. And in this space, the branding and how that comes across is really, really important.
Yes.
I would actually do a full just rebrand because these are your selling points. And you need to be able to capture that attention in 2 seconds, not in 20 seconds, 2 seconds.
So there's our opinions up here, but I'm curious to know, have you spent time with the people who've actually purchased your product to understand what's drawing them in? Is it what we're talking about, or is it something else?
So they're drawn in by the low sugar. So we're 3 or 4 grams of sugar per serving.
Absolutely. Nothing here.
So it's on the front. It's just not big enough.
And that should be...
That right there.
So this teeny
Bottom
weeny
left.
little thing...
Yeah.
I got it.
Okay, you're talking about less sugar, healthy soil, ancient Ethiopian grains. Like if you had that all here, I'd be like, whew, okay, now you've got me. Now this is fascinating. You have it, you're not showing it.
Claire's got it, but her packaging does not. Can she dig herself out of this one? That's coming up after a snack-sized ad break. Welcome back to the pitch room. Claire Smith is pitching her teff-based snack bites and granola. The investors don't love the packaging, but they're intrigued by the product. And if Claire can show a solid plan to get her product into more people's hands, that could turn around this pitch. Here's Phil.
To me, this product just lends itself so well to direct-to-consumer. And you mentioned that during COVID, you realized that you needed to diversify your distribution channels and start moving more to direct-to-consumer. Have you seen more traction there than via retail?
Yeah, I think the direct-to-consumer has been better for us. We entered into a Google study where they are paying for, $30,000 worth of ads and running the campaigns. And that massive amount of traffic to the website, we've seen, 3% conversion rates. And that's been very eye-opening for me because I never had the money beforehand to do any sort of digital ad. And if I can be super honest, it's been pretty much just me this entire 5 years.
Well, kudos to you then, because you've done a lot by yourself.
We've done a lot, and we did a friends and family round last year, and that's when I really saw, wow, money really can make things happen. I can see a future for sure where 50% of our revenue is coming from direct to consumer because we set up a subscription model. And so people can order this on subscription, and that sticky revenue has been amazing. It was 20% of our revenue last year.
Can I interject on this point though? So I've done a few food investments, and actually direct to consumer is good for getting started and getting data. It's good for you to be able to then take this data and go to Whole Foods and say, look, this is your audience and these are the numbers I'm doing. But from a scale perspective, you have to be able to win in stores. And so I think to this point of the packaging and all that, even though you may be able to sell it on your website, you have to be able to sell that messaging on the package. And so I actually would think more about what do I need to do in D2C to be able to win in stores rather than can I get the most volume in D2C, because I've just seen that the scale comes from stores still.
And if I can just say, our velocity, we've checked velocity of our SKUs on like a local level, and our velocity is higher than comparatively priced products. So why we're moving into the snack category is because there's much higher velocity on snacks, and these will be in single serving pouches. And so that way we open up so many more points of distribution. We're talking to Meijer gas stations. We're talking to vending machine operators. There's just so much more potential there with a snack bite that is just portable and more on the go than a granola. And I've sat in stores and watched people buy granola. I've spent hours in grocery stores watching people buy granola and asking them why.
Good time.
I've sat in some grocery stores. My husband loves granola, and I've sat there literally looking at the ingredients, looking at packaging. But you have got to front load on the front of the package these points. And I'm going to tell you, my gut says you'd see a giant lift. So I am out.
Thank you.
Well, Claire, what I'll say is I'm out for now. I want to believe in you. You have wonderful stage presence. You're clearly like onto something and doing something really interesting and novel. I would want to be sold more on the long-term vision and your ability to ship product in the store.
Yeah.
So I'm an investor in a company that makes crackers where the inputs are all regenerative. And this is mostly just a marketing exercise. They have basically a single vector message, which is we make crackers grown with regenerative practices. And the thing that was surprising to me is there is an emerging consumer who's very, very focused on that one single vector of regenerative. Because it's very easy to explain to people why it's a big deal.
Yep.
Like, do you want to strip all the nutrients out of soil and never be able to grow anything ever again? Or do you want sustainable practices?
Okay.
Yeah.
And just in listening to you, the regenerative is the thing you keep coming back to. So I'm out just because we've done a handful of food businesses, including that one. Ironically, that company also has a software arm that helps food manufacturers roll out regenerative practices through their supply chain. And turns out that's an easier business to scale than the crackers. But the crackers have done quite well as a product. So I think the missing ingredient here is a retail marketer and someone who can really help you kind of figure out, like, what's the one thing you want the company to be known for. And if it's helpful to put you in touch with our cracker company, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think you are a wonderful brand evangelist. I mean, this is obviously something you're very passionate about. I like what you're doing. It's too early at this stage for us to invest, so I'm going to pass. But I also encourage you to continue on the journey and learn what you can from your consumers and then focus on in the packaging to really differentiate at retail.
Thank you.
I'm really impressed by all that you've done as basically one person.
Yeah.
But I think for me, like, the marketing is really, really important. Having seen, a number of companies fail in food and beverage because of, branding issues or whatnot, you really have to be able to rise above the noise visually in the store. And that is the way to win.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yep.
So if you don't mind, I'm actually going to keep this and have my husband try it.
No, you got to
of
buy it,
course.
Jillian. You got to buy it.
No, you
Or
don't.
I'll buy it, or even just a little
I have
pack.
your samples.
Because, I can even have little ones
Do you have the
because
small
he's a granola guy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You very much,
Of
Claire.
Thank you,
Great
Claire.
job.
That's awesome.
This kind of thing kills me. She has worked so hard. She's transformed her entire farm. She has done everything right. And that last piece is the one that nobody told her. Nobody explained to her.
And she's a one-woman show. It's
She's a
hard to be
one-woman
good
show.
at everything. So she's
Truthfully.
getting there. She'll figure it out.
The thing that kills me as an overall broader point is I feel like the entrepreneurs in this space who are really good at food and beverage tend not to do as well as the entrepreneurs who come into it as like performance marketers.
I know.
It's a niche product for now that will have a niche audience until, if she's able to transform the product or the packaging to really stand out in some way, until then it's going to remain a niche product.
I was fascinated, Charles, by your point, which is actually, I didn't realize that this is
It's
a
early.
category
It's
that's
very
But
early.
people, like, there's an audience of people who really understand the long-term impact of regenerative farming, and they're looking for these products.
Yes.
You just have to, and if you put up a flag and say we're one of, it's like in the early days of organic.
Yeah.
Yes.
The person who runs that company is a terrific marketer.
Yeah. But
Like
that's
terrific marketer.
This is a marketing
It is a
business.
marketing
You have
business.
to
I
be
really
you have to be good at marketing or have someone who is.
Yeah.
I mean, she's pre-seed,
Yeah.
so she's trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
She's ancient seed.
Ancient
Yeah.
She's
seed.
ancient
Pre-grain.
Pre-grain.
Yeah, she's
Pre-grain.
she's ancient
Ancient
seed.
grain.
That's actually really funny.
So I would actually like to, in a first for the show, introduce the one and only granola guy.
Rob?
Yeah.
Luckily for us, Rob Chestnut, certified granola connoisseur and famously Jillian's husband, happened to be listening in the control room. So I invited him in to do a Teffola taste test.
Granola guy.
Drum roll, please.
I was going to
Ina,
get the
drum roll.
chocolate.
Nope, he's already 2 bites in.
No, this is good.
Is it good?
Oh, really?
Different
It
good?
is. You know what? I like the fact that it's not crazy different. In other words, if you like granola, you would like this. It's a little bit different. It has no cholesterol,
Right.
and the sugar is
12
4
grams of
grams.
carbs.
It's a good snack, though. I could see this being in the.
Yeah,
I
I
would
know
eat
you're
it
gonna
just
pop
as
that
a little.
into your suitcase.
I think it's got a nice flavor.
Yeah?
I'm impressed.
Would you describe it as Teffolicious?
Are you interested? Can I interest you in a marketing job?
That wouldn't be. I'm not a marketer, so that word didn't occur.
Well,
to
I
me.
think our company only goes up from here now that she's granola guy approved.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, social media, I can put this out.
We'll put your
It'll
See in
face
his
all
face. I'm
over
thinking
it.
it's like a Newman. It's a Newman's Own kind of thing.
endorses
That's right. He's the face of
right.
Teffola.
It's gonna.
the face of granola now. Right?
Teffola
You're
face.
my Teffola man.
I don't know where this is going.
Cut. All right. We're done. That's a wrap.
Okay, my little Teffy.
A few months later, we called up Claire to see how the rebrand was going. But as it turns out, branding was the least of her concerns.
She says, "You're out of money, Claire. What are you going to do?"
That's coming up right after this. Welcome back. It had been 2 months since we'd seen Claire last, so we called her up to see how things were going. By the way, I got a little heated, so there's some language in the rest of this episode. My bad. I'm curious, what was your experience like pitching the investors in the room?
I really enjoyed it. I felt like I went in and I was really happy with how I did. Ultimately, like, we weren't a great fit with the investors in there, and that's okay.
Yeah,
I also did have I legitimately had a lot of fun in there, and
that's good to hear.
I think it was just a good experience.
So there was a moment in the room when Elizabeth suggested that you guys just start from scratch and do a rebrand on the product. Do you think that was right? And is that something you're going to do?
I mean, we've heard a lot from consumers that they really like our packaging. And so what we did was we highlighted the low sugar. So we moved that to the very top of the bag.
Okay.
We added regeneratively grown ancient grains to be somewhere on the package. Once I could swallow my pride a little bit and look at things objectively, not from a place of high emotions,
Yeah.
they were right. And I think it looks great now. The tweaks, they look really good.
Yeah, love it. So you're trying to raise $375,000. How's the overall progress on the round? Have you gotten any commitments, any money in the bank?
We've gotten commitments from some angels, but money in the bank has not been there.
Okay.
The past 2 weeks have been honestly pretty rough. We had a tough VC call. I thought it was a call of all right, let's get going. And it very quickly turned into a call of, we don't have any gunpowder and we require that you have 6 months of runway, none of which they had cared to mention before.
Wait, so you thought you were going to potentially close investment in this meeting, and then you found out they didn't have any money to deploy, and you needed to be in a very different place in the business for them to invest?
Yeah, and maybe I didn't expect to close them, but I expected her to be like, okay, great. Yes, you've met our concerns, because I've been talking to them for 6-7 months now, and they would say, here are concerns. And then I would go and fix that, tweak the pitch, fix my numbers.
So they dragged you along.
Yeah. And so you get into a meeting and they're like, oh, so like we're hoping to close on the fund, in June.
Man, fuck that shit. That pisses me off, Claire. That's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, that was the worst 30 minutes of my life. Because I really thought we would be like pushed along to, all right, let's get into due diligence.
Yeah.
And then she was like, okay, so where are you? Cash in the bank, all these sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then she says, you're out of money, Claire. What are you going to do? And I'm like, don't cry on this Zoom call. So yeah, it was really shitty. It was super shitty. And like, I don't know if like I can say, but we're looking at more creative options for a way we can continue to exist in a way that maybe didn't always look like the way I thought it would.
You can't name what any of those are?
I mean,
like acquisition. Like, is that what we're talking about here?
That might be on the table. I mean, I can't confirm or deny.
Okay.
If the whole goal and the whole point of my company is to bring regenerative agriculture to people, to consumers, and really delicious snacks, then there are a lot of different ways that can happen where, Teffola continues to exist.
Yeah, that could obviously be very impactful for the brand and help you still accomplish the mission, depending on who it is. So I am very eager to hear how said or not said acquisition talks.
Trust me, I am quite literally checking my phone and my email constantly.
Even more than normal.
Even more.
I'm curious, like, what your just feelings have been wading into this crazy market, into pitching VCs. Like, has it been what you expected going into it?
The amount of rejection you get, you can't prepare for unless you've been dating, like first-time dates for like 5 years straight, like it's funny how resilient you get. But I think what's really important for founders to know is that you can't just be resilient. You have to be anti-fragile. You have to come back from a stressful event or a hard event. You have to come back stronger. You can't just go back to the equilibrium. You have to come back better than you were before. The fragile response is you just break, like hammer tapping glass. You're just going to break. The resilient response is like a rubber band. You stretch it and then it just goes back to the way it was before. And then the anti-fragile response is like a muscle. So you break it down and then it comes back stronger. What we're doing is the anti-fragile response.
To be a successful startup founder, you really have to become anti-fragile. There's no other choice. As soon as we hear any new updates from Claire about that maybe an acquisition, but who's to say situation, we'll let you know in our newsletter. You can subscribe at pitch.show/insider. Until then, if you'd like to try Claire's Granola Guy approved granola and their new snack bites, go to pitch.show/granola. The Pitch is me, Josh Muccio, Lisa Muccio, Carrie Ann Thomas, Anna Ladd, and Enoch Kim. Music in today's show is from The Musemaker, Breakmaster Cylinder, and New Body Electric. You think you're ready to pitch the investors on our show? Applications are now open for our next recording event. It's this June in sunny San Diego, California. For more info and to apply, go to pitch.show/apply. We are on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at The Pitch Show. Follow us all those places, and especially TikTok, so we can hit 1,000 subscribers and put our link in the bio. Thank you very much. And if you want more of The Pitch, subscribe to Pitch Plus. You'll You'll get ad-free listening to the entire catalog and occasional bonus content. Plus, it's a really good way to support the show. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Just go to pitch.show/plus to learn more. The Pitch is made in partnership with the Vox Media Podcast Network. Next week on The Pitch.
Can you explain your valuation?
Sure.
It's really frothy.
There's no way we're going lower in valuation. If I had my way, we're building a $10 billion company. I would raise a $100 million valuation right now.
That's kind of sexy.
Go make the money, honey.
Well, I'd say that speaks for itself. See you next Wednesday. The Pitch Inc. and their respective employees and affiliates do not provide investment advice or make investment recommendations. The information provided on this show should not be used as the basis for making investment decisions. Listeners should conduct their own research and consult with their own investment advisors before making any investment decisions.